Probably second on the list of difficult movements to perform shortly after double unders is the kettlebell snatch. I know I spent the first bunch of years with bruises on the backs of my forearms as I learned how to do this thing. So let's jump into an easy, quick progression without beating this thing to death and get you kettlebell snatch. If you're newer to using kettlebells, one of the real easy mistakes you can make is grabbing the kettlebell handle in the center of the handle. When we're doing cleans or snatches, it's important to grab it so that you're in the bend of the kettlebell. And the reason is as that index finger's in that bend of the kettlebell, from this rack position, whether it's the clean or the overhead position of the snatch, all I need to do is turn, and it doesn't need to change my grip, and it's an easier way to reset for the next rep. So as we do this warm up, we're going with that 45-degree angle grip in the horn there. Step number one after the grip is just a Russian kettlebell swing. And what we're gonna do and focus on reducing any sort of axial loading by keeping the shoulders as square as possible as the kettlebell comes between the legs. The second thing is I want to keep that kettlebell close to me, so having a little bend in the arm towards the eye level is not a bad thing. And what you want to think is get that shoulder blade back and together as you perform this. Resist the urge to let that shoulder blade float forward. Step two is the clean. As we hinge at the hip and then open the hip, we want to practice the receiving position of the kettlebell as well as the reset back to the hip hinge position. What's important here is having that proper grip so that I arrive at this clean position close to the body. And then as I reset, instead of thinking up and over, what I'm going to practice is turning and hip hinging. Turning and hip hinging. Step three, the clean and press. And the reason that we jump into the clean and press before just going kettlebell snatch overhead is we're going to take some of the complexity out of the movement. We're going to warm up the shoulder a little bit as we go overhead, but now we can practice that turn from the overhead position to the hip hinge position. The last step is the kettlebell snatch, and we've already practiced how to return down to the hip hinge from the overhead position by simply turning your hand and allowing that kettlebell to follow its normal path to the hinge. We need to practice how to position the kettlebell to receive it in the overhead position. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to generate as much force as needed to get the kettlebell overhead with the hips, and then you're going to give a little bit of a pull with the shoulder and a little bit of a press with the hand. And that should help you get that kettlebell onto the back of the arm in the overhead position. Again, one of the most essential parts of this is having the right grip as you're performing this. Let's take a look at the pull with the shoulder, press with the hand, and we'll even slow it down for you so you can see this thing. When you haven't had a lot of exposure to a movement, it can be frustrating. And this is one of those exercises that can be very frustrating because it causes pain. Now, I want you to think of this as like a power clean. When you first learn to power clean, your collarbones and your shoulders are all kind of beat up after the first few sessions. And the reason is because we haven't learned quite yet how much power to develop at the hip to get the bar into position without over cleaning the bar and having it land on your shoulders or collarbones. The same is true with this kettlebell snatch. You have to kind of play with it and figure out the timing of that transitional period where we place the kettlebell on the back of the arm. Don't get frustrated. Instead, use an appropriate weight that's not going to beat up the back of your arm. That's the kettlebell snatch. If you guys want to see more exercise demonstrations and explanations, take a look at our channel, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.